Hi. So the last video was touching on, parenting issues, daddy issues, mommy issues, as it were, and how important it is to dissect the patterns that we were raised in and raised around, the ideals that were founded in us. It's important not only for us, but how we raise our kids in the future, or even if you never plan on having kids, it's important for how you interact with people who are younger than you, people who look up to you, your neighbors, your cousins, your nieces and nephews. And I feel like since we're in the little bit of a revolution now, a civil rights revolution, and I hope and pray that there's a mental health revolution, and a child safety revolution, and a women's safety revolution. So in that sense, it's even more important, to be introspective about yourself, where you come from and what you believe in, and certain things that your parents may have done to you or around you that were not okay. And it's okay to say things that weren't okay, and it's okay to say things hurt you. I think in the Black community and maybe some other minority communities, it's not acceptable to talk back to your parents, your elders, You don't call them by the first names, you don't cuss at them, you do what they say when they say it, or you get hit, right? Or something else if you lived in a different type of family. And so it can be very hard to identify those patterns. And so a lot of people make jokes about it, which is a great coping skill. That's a great mechanism. And I'll talk more about coping skills in a future video, maybe in a week or so. But one of my coping skills is writing. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you. And I hope that you're able to explore your own coping skills, writing down things that happen, like you might just get memories that get unlocked or something, or making music, or talking to somebody about it. Talk to me or talk to any of the numbers in the description box that I'm giving you below. They're all really good resources. I've definitely used some in the past. And one of those text lines is how I was eventually directed to a counselor in my area who was able to help me. So I was really happy about that. I'm talking a lot because I'm trying to put off reading this poem because it takes maybe a little bit of a toll, mental, emotional toll, but I'll be okay. It feels better to get it out than to keep it in. Okay. This one is called, and maybe you'll pick up on some references in here. You have to let me know. But this poem is called Hunting Dad. Okay. Papa was a rolling stone, and that's a true story. Sometimes it hurt, trying to get his attention, constantly waving our hands towards the sky. He never really saw us there and preferred his own horizon to that one. As a kid, the distance hurt a little less because his haunts were always local. He'd disappear throughout the daylight hours of the weekend, but we had good reason to believe he was at the dry cleaners, or the hardware store, or drilling something in our garage, or hiking in the woods, or grilling in the yard, or trimming hedges till he grew sweaty, or down in the basement having a beer, or in his office, away, 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 so often there in his office, typing proposals and staring at emails through the screen. Do not interrupt, Ambria. I set the example for my siblings, and I did not. All business all the time, my dad, even when he was relaxed. So formal, even in his humor, even in his weekend clothes. His voice so low and booming to me, a measured tone of voice. Dad could never really relax. He was a genius in many respects, a mind on fire, multiple degrees in multiple fields, expert of many trades, activities, and accolades. Never at rest, a sight to behold. He was distant in some ways, and it hurt as a kid, but I recognized the loner gene in him, and it fueled me to know that we were so much the same, that I loved him so, and it was okay if I never heard it back because we shared similar secrets, undiagnosed anxieties. When I turned 11, my whole world changed as well as my ficklish body. Dad never left us, but sometimes it felt like he did, or that he might really want to. He moved on from downtown and decided to traverse the globe. We moved a lot, and soon it was just him moving as our little family stayed behind and waited. Dad would be gone for weeks on end for work, sometimes hard to reach on the phone. Me begging him in so many words to stay, but never getting what I wanted to hear. Feelings are irrelevant to what the family needs. Money and prosperity reign king. We sacrificed along with him. We made do without the safety of his presence, without a second parent, if that means anything at all. I always felt Dad was alone in his truest, most soulful sense. He always provided for us. Food on the table, roof overhead. He buzzed like a bee, constantly back and forth to work or to the store or tending around the house. Cleaning, fixing, never idle hands, always busy, my dad. He loved to drive for hours and hours cross-country, alone with low country music on the radio. He was a man of nature and marveled at everything from the mountains to the moon. Sometimes I longed to go with him on these long driving trips, but it was not to be. I once went along on a drive, saying goodbye, unable to stop the tears as I looked out the window. No one whispered a word to me as melancholy filled up my chest, the worst family trip of my life, over state lines for our move to Indiana. I cried to a silent, unmoving audience in the car. I knew better than to ask to go back. I have always hated leaving, and it started as a kid. And again, it hurt, being my dad's oldest daughter, seeing my face in his reflection, in the rearview mirror, then retreating and looking away, wanting to understand his pain, but not knowing exactly how. His father, my grandfather, was almost completely absent, and their meetings often full of trauma. I never met the man, and never even thought to ask. A part of me just gone. It has been over 20 years since he died. My dad was fully there for me, but not in the ways I so usually wanted. His emotions always out of reach. His mind on a higher pedestal and actions exemplary of a true Southern gentleman. Polite but firm, demanding respect, demonstrating dignity. No, sir. Yes, sir. A businessman, a black professional, a triumph to his neighborhood, somewhat of an idol for me and the young people living in our house over the years. To look at movies alone, I never knew what a black man could or should be. Then childhood showed me the light in them all. My dad, his brother, our dear family friends, I would compare them all in secret, trading places every time. The dads and their seemingly unconditional approval, the light in their eyes for a child who is not theirs. When I looked, asking for something, they gave it to me without question. And I saw an emptiness behind my dad's eyes that only I could see. The bitter jealousy in my own heart, fantasizing for a father for whom I don't have. One who clocks the desperation in my voice and under my skin. A father who knows my greatest fear, that I am a toddler again with no one around to comfort me, crying out to nobody. Sometimes I feel like I had half of a dad. I would cry for the other half at night, the half who was lost somewhere in a different timeline, the one who would hug me without my asking or begging him to, who would coddle me as an instant reaction to my tears, who never fully stopped babying me since I knew I was so much of a baby at heart. It hurt to conceal the constant longing in my bones. I longed for a man as warm and soft as my mother, but fierce in the ways a father so often can be. But fighting for attention grows old. I wanted someone who I didn't have to beg for loyalty, whose pride I could step into like the warm, warm sun. I worshipped both of them, my mother and my father. But with him, I always drew so little water from the stone. He was, and still is, impossible. I feverishly followed in his footsteps every day, and it feels so much like sleepwalking. Like an accident, like I had never had to work that much to track him, but Dad never wants me to catch up. I am an ankle biter, always at his heels, much too close, and I am so sorry. Some tracker I am, some hunter, so obvious, no room for incognito. Too desperate as it grows steadily darker outside. I fall behind as always, and I'm losing the trail now. I slip and fall in the remnants of one of his large shoe prints. It doesn't fit mine. It is much too big, and I could never, ever fill it. I do not try to stand again. I let the rocks and stones dig into my back as I accept this flat dirt bed. It's all over for this newly exotic prey. I wait under the moonlight to be hunted by the more patient predators. Dad will not be among them. Dad has already moved on. That was my poem called Hunting Dad. Definitely about kind of chasing your father, following in his footsteps, being in his shadow, feeling like you can never live up to his expectation or his legacy. You know, it also speaks to the lost parts of the legacy because our parents weren't taught in the way that we are starting to be taught as far as talking about emotion and mental health. They weren't taught that, and certainly mine wasn't, and he doesn't have the language for it in a lot of ways. So by me maybe overusing language sometimes, that helps me process it, and I really hope that I can help you process or help someone you love process. And this is all stuff I'm sharing with him too, so I hope it'll help him process too. Okay, anyway, I think I'll post one more, and then I'll have another one in a week or so. Okay, so goodbye, 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 bye.